Hi, this is Joseph from Branch 4. Are you confident that your cyber fraud protection are truly working to protect where it matters most? In today's session, I'm going to show you a straightforward diagnostic method that you can finally see if your cyber fraud control is working, so that you can quickly pinpoint critical gaps, slash wasteful spending, and streamline inefficient processes. This isn't just theory. By applying the core principles we are going to touch today, I was able to help an organization to slash waste in cyber fraud investigation efficiency by over 500%. It involved uncovering where investigators' efforts were wasteful and then empowering them to resolve cases faster. The result were less alert fatigue, meeting and even exceeding their service level agreements. So today, we are going to focus on three key areas to bring clarity on your control landscape. First, we'll look under the hidden dangers of set and forget controls and why even multi-layered defenses can leave you exposed or wasting resources. Then we'll explore strategic threat mapping, a clear method to visualize the actual coverage of your control against specific fraud kill chain. And then I will walk you through your first diagnostic by using the gap and waste identifier framework that will help you to pinpoint action points quickly. So let's get started. Many organizations, they build layers of security over time. It feels comprehensive, but without a clear ongoing strategy to map these controls against specific ever-evolving cyber fraud scenario and their kill chains, three major problems occur. First, dangerously unprotected gaps. Then we have a surprising amount of wasteful and redundant spending. And the third is complicated process bogging down your team. The set and forget mentality, or simply adding more control layers without strategic alignment, is a common pitfall. You may think you're covered, but fraudsters evolve their tactics. And if your controls are not mapped to the current kill chain of a key threat like business email compromise, critical stages of the attack will go undefended. On the contrary, you might have multiple tools all trying to do the same job at the same point in the kill chain. This leads to redundant spending, alert fatigue, and overly complex processes that consume your budget, your team's time, without delivering proportional protection. This isn't about not having enough controls, but ensuring you have the right controls on the right places working efficiently. So how do we cut through this complexity? How do we visualize the gaps, the waste, and the unnecessary complexity? By mapping the controls to these threat scenarios. This involves three stages, which I'm going to walk you through, and then I'll demonstrate to you in the toolkit that I promised. So first, you need to pick a high priority threat scenario. How do you start? Well, think about what keeps you up at night, or that risk you're trying to find justification for investment in your next high stakes meeting. Be specific. Then map out how it typically unfolds, or it is simplified kill chain. Then for each stage of that kill chain, you list the primary controls that are supposed to act in that stage. What tools, what processes, what trainings are supposed to act at that point. Then third, make an honest assessment. Is each stage well covered? Is there a gap? Is there no wasteful overlap? Or are the processes simple enough? Or is your team spending more effort than necessary? This mapping process is like an X-ray of your defenses against a specific threat, instead of making your coverage visible. To make this real, it's time to get practical right now. I'll walk you through Cyber Fraud Controls Gap and Waste Identifier worksheet, and it will be your first step to start applying this in your organization. The worksheet has got three sections. The first is a threat scenario. Then we have got the control mapping and diagnostic summary. So we'll start with an example of BEC, the vendor email compromise. The next thing we have to do is to break down into the stages of the kill chain. The first stage of this fraud is that the vendor email is compromised. The second stage is the fraudster send an invoice to us. And the third stage, the invoice is processed internally. And the fourth stage, payment is made to the fraudster. So the next part is control mapping. For each stage of the kill chain, you're going to list down the controls that you have for that stage. So in stage 1, for example, vendor compromise, you have vendor risk assessment or a contractual security clauses, and you list them down. So in the second stage of the fraudulent email sent, you may have controls like advanced email filtering or training employees for spotting out fake invoices. So you list them down and you continue to list for each of the stages. And then on the check boxes, you do critical assessment. For each stage, is it covered? Is it partially covered? Is there a gap? Or there is overlap and waste? Once you've mapped this out, the diagnostic summary section helps you consolidate your results. And are there any gaps in your controls? Is there potential for waste or overlap? And then overall, how do you see your controls for this threat? Is it optimized? Is there an area of improvement, or it's inefficient? Filling this form out for one or two of your top priority cyber fraud scenario, you'll quickly identify areas of action and prioritization. I hope this session and the cyber fraud controls, gaps, and wastes identifier worksheet gives you a practical way to look at your defenses with fresh eyes. Now, before you go, remember, this diagnostic tool is just the starting point. It's not enough just to identify the gaps, but to fill them intelligently. To achieve that, we need to quantify the risk in those gaps in financial terms so that we can gain executive buy-in. And then we can start optimizing the controls based on return of investment. If you're ready to take your first diagnostic step, click the link on the screen or in the description below to download the resource we discussed today. Thanks for your time. I look forward to helping you achieve greater clarity and confidence in your cyber fraud defenses. Joseph from Branch Fraud.